Hey y'all, today we are making a super simple meatloaf. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is get you a bowl out and put you in a pound of ground beef. Now, if you don't do ground beef, do ground turkey. That will work just fine, okay? I'm making a small one, so 1 pound is all I needed. Then I'm going to add in 1 egg. Does not matter if it's room temperature or anything like that. That doesn't matter for this. Then I'm going to add in some Worcestershire sauce. And I'm guessing about 2 tablespoons is what I added in. I didn't measure, obviously, as you can see. That's about how much I added in. Then I'm going to add in some minced onion. Y'all, I know the world must be coming to an end because I did not have a darn onion. I got to go to the store. Have got to go to the store. But I had some minced onion, so that's what we're going with. But normally, I would dice up an onion and put in here, okay? And some bell pepper if you have that. Didn't have that either. Anyway, so now I'm just going to put a little seasoning on it. I'm adding Old Faithful, right? Garlic powder, onion powder, salt, and pepper. That's what I'm adding in there. If you want to use Cajun seasoning, that is delicious in here. Use whatever you have, whatever you like, whatever you want. Now, I'm just doing it as simple as I can because I know a lot of people don't have everything. Like sometimes when I make recipes, people are like, well, I don't have that at my house. But what I'm making today, you probably have all the ingredients for this. You don't have to make meatloaf complicated, y'all. It doesn't have to be complicated. So once I seasoned it up a little bit, I'm adding in a half of one of these cans. It's not the tiny can, it's the next size, like the same kind, the same size can you get of like green beans or whatever. Add half of that can in there and save that other half. We're going to do something else with that. So then I added in some breadcrumbs, and now you got to go in here with your hands, okay? Now, don't freak out. My hands are clean, number 1. Number 2, I was meal prepping this meatloaf for me, myself, and I, so I was going to be the only one eating it. But, even if I'm the only one eating, my hands are clean when I deal with food because who wants anybody's dirty hands in their food? You know what I'm saying? But I know people get real butthurt sometimes about me not putting a glove on. But you know what? If you want to put a glove on, honey, you go right ahead. Now, if I was cooking it for a whole bunch of people I didn't know, obviously I wouldn't put my, ungloved hand in the middle of all this meat because you really got to go elbow deep in a meatloaf, honey. But you can't stir meat with a spoon. Like ground beef when you're mixing it, like you can't really do that with a spoon. So you got to get in there and feel what you're doing. So especially with something like this, because when you I just added some breadcrumbs. And when you add the breadcrumbs in there, extra breadcrumbs, I like to be able to feel. Okay, I do a lot of things by the way it feels. And I'm sure a lot of people who have been cooking a long time will do the same thing. And so I have to feel whether I need more stuff. If I need a little bit more salt, tomato sauce, or if I need more breadcrumbs. And look, if you don't have breadcrumbs, that's not a necessity for this recipe. Crumble up some crackers, toast some bread, and, tear it up real fine. Any of that will work in here, okay? So don't go out and buy breadcrumbs specially, even though I got mine at the Dollar General for like $1. But, you don't have to have them, okay? So once you get your meat all mixed up real good. Make sure you wash your hands, scrub under your fingernails because you're going to have raw meat everywhere. We're going to take a little bowl, take the other half of that can of tomato sauce that we saved, and we're going to just season that up with the same things that we put into the meat, okay? I'm just using garlic, onion, salt, pepper, and some of those minced onions. If you diced your own onion up, just make sure you dice some of it really tiny to put in this topping. Now, I know some people don't use tomato sauce as a topping on their meatloaf. I know that is taboo to some people. I don't like barbecue sauce on my meatloaf, and I don't care for ketchup on my meatloaf. And I know that is what a lot of people use on their meatloaf. But again, y'all, this is just the way I make it. If you want to make changes and just kind of use this as a guide, feel free. You're definitely not going to hurt my feelings. That's the good thing about cooking is you can change it to suit whatever your family likes and whatever you like and whatever you have at your house, okay? So once you get everything mixed up, did I tell y'all to preheat your oven to 350 Fahrenheit? If I didn't, you need to do that. So once everything is good and mixed up, because I'm using a fattier meat, I'm using like 80-20 in here, I'm not going to grease this pan. Okay, and as you have noticed, I'm not putting my meatloaf into a loaf. So maybe I shouldn't call it a meatloaf. I'm sure somebody Somebody will be out there telling me that it's not a meatloaf. Well, it's my meatloaf, doggone it. It is. But I don't put mine in the shape of a loaf, okay? I have an aversion to meatballs. I may have mentioned that before. I cannot eat a meatball. And to me, a meatloaf that is shaped in like a loaf is like a gigantic meatball to me, and I just cannot do it. I can't do it. I just can't do it, y'all. I just don't like them. So this is the way I make mine. This is the way I've always made it. This is the way I made it for my kids growing up. And this is the way I'll continue to make it because this is the way that, again, we like it. We like it this way. But you don't have to. You can use the same thing that I just did and put that in a loaf if you want to. And that's how thick it is, y'all. See, just that right there. It's not super thick. So now I'm going to add the topping. And this is where I differ from a lot of people also. A lot of people won't add their topping right away. They'll let their meat cook, and then halfway through they'll add the topping. I like mine to cook the entire time because it kind of caramelizes that tomato sauce on top of your meatloaf, and it just is so good, y'all. But you can do it, again, this is just how I do mine. You can do yours however you want to. If you want to wait and add it, halfway through, you certainly can. So I'm just going to spread that out on there, and then we're going to put this in the oven, y'all. 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Like I said, I'm trying to be good and say Fahrenheit when I'm cooking. So, some of my friends who watch from other places are little family members from across the way, so they'll know. 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 30 minutes, okay? It is not going to be done after 30 minutes, okay? It's not going to be done. But you see all that grease? We got to get that out of there, okay? If you use a leaner meat or like turkey meat, you probably will not even need to do this step. But I wanted to show y'all that if you use a fattier meat, you may have to do this because you don't want to end up with just a big greasy ball of meat, okay? And I'm sure some people don't do this, but for me personally, I have to get some of that grease out of there. And I just wad up paper towels, like I said, and shove it in the corner and just kind of soak up a little bit of it. You don't want it all out of there because we're going to cook this for longer and you don't want your meatloaf to dry out. But I like to get a good bit of the grease out, okay? Because it's just a lot. It really is a lot. And if you cook this like in a loaf, like on a wire rack or something, you won't have this grease to have to deal with. But, sometimes we just got to do what we got to do. Once you get the grease drained off of there, you're going to pop it back in the oven for another 20 to 30 minutes until it's done. Everybody's oven is different, so I sometimes hate to give exact times. But it takes me about an hour to cook. I cook my meatloaf for an hour. Okay, that's just how I do mine. I cook it for 30 minutes, deal with the grease, and then cook it for another 30. And then when it comes out, you may see a little bubbling around the edges, but that's not a ton of grease, so it's okay. And then I just cut it into pieces like this, and I serve mine with mashed potatoes and green peas. I really like corn, but guess what? Didn't have any corn either, y'all. I need to go to the store. All right, but that is all I've got for y'all today, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. Bye, y'all.